Welcome everyone. How y'all doing this morning? Yes, you woke up and you came today on a beautiful Saturday morning to get educated by some of our panelists today on arts and advertising. How many people here were here from the last chat? Me! It's cool to see all fresh new faces though. So yeah, welcome. This is Zone 5. This is the office of the Pikes Arts Council. My name is Gaynor. I'm the president of the Pikes Arts Council. So we will be talking today about, like I said, arts and advertising with our fellow partners, American Advertising Federation. We got Quacy, we got Fee here from there. We got another one of your board members. Hello, you in the back?
Jake's here
Jake
as
as
well.
well.
We also
Jake.
have a lot of folks from AIGA.
AIGA? Yeah, you like it. Do not make me. That's cool. Well, Zone 5 is a creative office. We have a couple of practicing artists here, but the Arts Council also has our space here as well. We like to say where artists are at and the art making is. So sometimes this building, this part of the building gets curated. They have like, what was it? I think a couple of schools from D11 district did their huge arts celebration here. And just to plug one of our events, we have our member mixer, which is like when all of our members and hopefully joining members, any of you guys want to join, will come and we'll mingle. This July 18th, I believe, is when our next member mixer will be. And it's barbecue themed. You don't have to bring any food. We'll have some food. It's donation based and have some vendors. You get to learn a little bit more about what we do more intimately with more of our board members being here. And yeah, just a good time to meet and chat. But I'd like for us to introduce ourselves and then to make it around the room to hear about who you guys are. Okay. So I done the thing. What about you? What's your name? Where are you from?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jonathan Toman with the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak region. I'm the program manager for cultural promotion and tourism there.
Hi, everyone. Quacy, Superville, also go by Q. I'm the chairperson for membership and events at AAF Colorado, American Advertising Federation. We're a unifying voice for advertising, and excited to talk to you guys today.
Howdy, I'm Jeremy. I'm the creative director with AdPro here in town, and very flattered and honored to be asked to be here, and excited to talk advertising and art and the intersection between them. And from my experience, that's been a big part of my career. So, and I don't know if I'm passing this around or.
Sure. Pass the mic.
Hello, I'm Gina Pietramali. I lead the creative services team for the Gazette's sales and marketing division.
Felicia Anzaldua. I am president of the American Advertising Federation of Colorado.
Hi, I'm Rose, growth marketing.
I'm Emerson. I just recently graduated from PPSC with my graphic design degree and just started working in the industry. So,
Emerson, you were here last time, huh?
not last time, but a while ago. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jake Cowdrey. I'm the vice president for AAF Colorado.
Good morning. My name is Jesse Taylor. I am associate creative director at Marketing for Change and also freelance under Jesse Taylor Creative and serve on the board of AIGA.
Hello, I'm Joseph, designer, educator, podcaster, also on the AIGA board.
I'm Colin Christie. I'm with Neon Pig Creative and also serve on the board for AIGA Colorado Springs.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Way. I'm the least creative person in the room. I do finance for AAF and on the board for that, and I'm also the integrated media director at AdPro.
I'm Don. I'm with Upward Creatives, and I basically come to every event and I'll shoot your stuff. And yeah.
Important photography.
Hi, I'm Aves. I'm the secretary of the Pikes Peak Arts Council, so I'm here just helping out today. And I'm going to pass this back.
Co-events too.
Co-events chair, yes, that's also me.
Sweet.
And just one thing I want to add too for AF Colorado, we also have a lot of events and regular events that happen every month. And this today we typically have coffee talks at the end of every month, and we collaborate with organizations within the area. We turned this event into a panel discussion just to expand on last month's conversation. But again, we have these at the end of every month. We have co-working events at the beginning of every month, the first Fridays. And yeah, just figuring out ways to connect people in the space.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, since you got the mic there, I would love to start by just understanding a little bit about your personal background with advertising and art, if that hits on any of those, but then also like, how does AAF serve, artists and advertisers? What's the core mission for AAF?
Sure. So I'll start with your first question. So the first piece, I've been in sales, marketing, tech for the past 14 years. I've worked recently. I worked for a B2B tech agency. I helped bring or build out their SF or their US location out in San Francisco, and that was full service. We did B2B tech focus, but everything from research to insight to creative development to content to activation, which is considered paid media, organic, all of the things. And so now what I do, I started my own consultancy about 2 months ago, called marketingcues.com, and I help founders and small business owners grow their business sustainably. And the second part of your question, for AAF, we're really focused on getting people in the industry, advertising, creatives, marketers, people connected, because I feel like by building community, there's so much opportunity to share ideas and bring out the diversity within those ideas. And so I think that's one of the main ways that we do it. Another way is we have educational events as well. So we try to kind of incorporate learnings into everything that we do. So.
Mm-hmm. Yes, President over there.
So background in advertising,
yes, who are you and what is your background in advertising and arts?
So I grew up in Colorado Springs and I grew up around advertising. That's what my dad did, and I never thought I wanted to do advertising or live in Colorado Springs, but I also knew I wanted to be able to like pay bills and like buy food and stuff. So I was trying to be a songwriter for a number of years. And then I got an internship at FCB Chicago. And I was an intern there, and they were only going to hire like one intern, and they said it's going to be this guy Mark. We all know that, and Mark and I are still really good friends to this day. But then on the very last day, the last hour of my internship, they're like, "You play guitar and write songs. Like, we've got this Oreo pitch coming up. Would you want to write a song for that, like a jingle?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And so they gave me one day of freelance after my internship ended. And I wrote this jingle and I played it for the chief creative officer. And afterwards he said, "You're hired." And then the next week we were presenting to the CMO of Oreo, which was pretty cool to be like an intern 1 week. And then yeah, it was pretty scary. But it was awesome. We didn't get the pitch, but I did get a job, and then that led to a lot of jingles. And then I was just the jingle guy there at FCB Chicago, and I was like, I don't want to be the jingle guy anymore. I'm gonna go to an agency in LA. And I was there for like 3 months and was producing some work, but then a project came that was for like Happy Honda Days, and they were like, "What about a jingle?" So I sold myself out again and wrote some jingles, and that was like a campaign that ran for like 10 years. It was a stop motion little campaign with all these jingles that I got to sing on and stuff like that. And we would do them at Capitol Records. And I got to sing in Frank Sinatra's microphone, which if he knew that a guy like me was singing in it, he'd probably be rolling in his grave. And then, yeah, I came back here, and I just think that, art and advertising are so intertwined. To me, art is kind of an expression of the soul. And advertising can tend to be soulless. So if you just inject just a little bit of soul into that advertising, it will resonate with people and motivate them to buy your product or to attend your event or what have you. So that's a long-winded answer.
No, I think you got straight to it. And then how does that factor into the work that you do now with AdPro as well?
Yeah, I think it is just trying to have that little bit of soul that I was talking, because like if it's just that straight sell, it's I don't think that's going to resonate with people or motivate people. I think it's that little touch of just the human element that resonates with people and motivates people. And like, I remember the ad that has the Viking in it, or the guy eating the donuts in it, or that's the claymation guys, or something like that. If it's just the straight sell, like if I'm inviting somebody to lunch and I'm like, Tuesday, 12 o'clock lunch, be there, like that's not gonna like, but it's like, hey, we're going to lunch, it's gonna be great, somebody's gonna drink a beer, and yeah, I don't know. So I just think that little insertion of soul into advertising goes a long way.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, if a claymation Viking invited me to lunch, I would probably go.
Yes. Who are you? Where are you from?
Yeah. Jonathan Toman with the Cultural Office. I think for me, I started as a storyteller, and that's really how it's evolved for me. When I was at UCCS, I ran the student newspaper as the editor-in-chief for 2 years. That was a 40-hour week, 25 student employee sort of undertaking. We had a weekly paper. So I started with that approach. Out of school, got a job at the Cultural Office running Peak Radar, which, show of hands, how many people know what Peak Radar is? Okay. It is a massive marketing platform for arts and culture here locally. When the Cultural Office was founded in 2006, the first thing all the arts groups wanted help with was marketing, because they're busy building the set, writing the poem, doing whatever it is to make their art happen. And they wanted help getting folks to their events. And that's where Peak Radar came in. So I've been running that for now going on 8-9 years. Something like that, and working with the good folks at Neon Pig Creative and Colin in the back there to illustrate the depth and breadth of what we have going on here. And it's really evolved from just an event platform where we had just like music and dance and theater and film, to really turned into a community calendar and a whole marketing platform where we have sports and outdoors events and family fun events and guides, like a free outdoor summer concert guide. And it is really a core part of our work. And also, I mentioned my full title is Program Manager of Cultural Promotion and Tourism, right? It's one of the key platforms for that. When we talk about how we attract folks to our region to become visitors and then potentially live here and contribute quality of life, the arts are a big way that we do that locally as a community, because it speaks to why people stay in places and why they move to places. And then on the journalism side, I'm still a freelance writer for Springs Magazine. I wrote for the Gazette for a few years as well. So that storytelling piece, and that's what advertising is, I think, in a lot of ways, right? Is you're telling your story in the best way that you know how to reach your people. And that's, it's an important part of my work professionally and personally.
Heck yeah. I think this, with you guys telling us a little bit about how each of you got, each of your sections, your values, I'd love to talk about your brand identity and then audience. So with your audience, I think that understanding who your audience is can help you understand how your brand wants to function to help people. But before we go super deep into this conversation, I think, like who do you guys target? Is it nonprofits? Is it individual artists? Like who's your ideal customer?
Okay, so I'll start with me. Actually, this is a really interesting question, because I made a really drastic change from working with, corporate B2B tech clients, and I think at the end of last year, I, went soul searching. Right, I did some travel, connected with old colleagues and friends, and really realized that I really liked kind of working and helping small businesses and people who are bombarded every day by all of the best practices and all of the tech and getting sold all of these things that's going to make their life better, and at the same time trying to run their business, as Jonathan mentioned. And what I realized was if I could do that, if I could work with people who have purposeful businesses and they want to do, they want to be impactful in what they do, and if I can help them think 3, 6, 12, 18 months and kind of define a North Star that fills their soul and fills kind of like their vision, and then leverage my experience, working with, you know, with companies, being able to kind of build up a really strong brand and, solidify kind of the audiences and the segments that matter, and then create messages and offers that matter to these audiences. And if I could bring that to people who are, supporting communities, then I would be fulfilled. And so that's what kind of started my journey within kind of my own consultancy. And in terms of how I approach that, or how I approach kind of connecting with people, it really just started with helping out, because my brain is just automatically wired to optimize, and as well as like bring out I think impactful elements of campaign. It's just, I don't know how or why, but it's just something that I've been grateful for in being able to kind of live my dream in working in advertising. And so I think my approach of connecting with people and helping them get to the core of their story and define that story, communicate that story, and then define that an audience that story resonates with, and then being able to build a campaign around that is aligned with their budgets and their vision and their expectations. I feel pretty rewarded doing that.
So you would say that your audience is small business owners?
Yes, I would say founders and small to medium-sized business owners, who are tired of trying to juggle everything themselves, and who recognize the importance of bringing in help where it's needed.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a personal brand. It might be, endearingly disheveled. It might be something like that. One of my advertising heroes is a guy, Leo Burnett, and he was another agency in Chicago, and he did Tony the Tiger and all these serial stuff, and and he always said, like, you're just trying to, if the client is a shoe, you're just trying to fill that shoe. You're a shapeshifter, like you're just trying to fit in this different shoe. And early on in my career, I was just like, I just want to do the funny stuff. I just want to be a funny guy and maybe sing some jingles and stuff like that. And but I try not to limit myself, especially the past couple of years when I started to work at AdPro, or when they approached me to work there. There was a client for like veteran suicide prevention, and that was like very outside the realm of like I don't think a charming little jingle is going to work there.
Yeah, I can't make that funny.
No. I've tried. No. But it was like, oh, this is an interesting challenge. It's I don't know if I'm the right person for it, because I'm not a veteran. My political leanings are more towards the left, which is kind of not traditionally what veterans are, so I was like, but I'm going to try and fit this shoe like Leo Burnett told me to. Not personally, he was dead before I was, but like I'm going to, I want to try and fit this shoe, and we came up with this veteran suicide prevention program called Next Chapter, and we got to name it and come up with the logo and the branding, and so that was an interesting challenge, and we actually saw a 5% drop in veteran suicides in El Paso County with this campaign. And advertising is just a small part of that. It's the clinicians and the people that really make the difference. But so I try to be the shape shifter. Earlier this week I was doing stuff for a state fair, women's fashion. Like I said, I don't scream fashion or anything like that, but there's a new women's fashion brand we're working on, and like trying to capture that brand voice. So I guess brand identity would be a shapeshifter who is disheveled in his day-to-day life and tired with kids. So, but
And who is your demographic when it comes down to how do you like when you guys find clients or when clients come to you? Who is a part of that?
we have an amazing media director who gives us lots of great info up front. She might be here today. So it's different for everything, you know. And sometimes it's really broad, and sometimes, you know, we do a lot of automotive advertising, and it's interesting to see like, oh, the demographic for this brand is totally different than this luxury brand and this family brand and the truck buyer brand and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't specialize in one of them. I try and be that shapeshifter, but I love agencies that are purpose driven or do have that like niche that they, you know, are masters of, you know. I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. And it, you know, but I do my best with any great, and Kimberly makes it easy. And when you have a great team of people to kind of give you those insights and like, oh, this is the TV shows they might watch. And this is, you know, it's like, oh, okay, I think I might be able to capture that brand voice a little bit. So it's kind of wherever the research and I guess in the intersection of art and advertising, that's the advertising part. It's like, what does the research say? What does the analytics say? Where are these people going to be? What kind of stuff do they like? And now it's like with all the different kinds of media, it's, you know, trying to figure that out and navigate that and like get into social spaces or like, you know, are they podcasters and stuff like that, you know? So really no set demographic or brand.
AdPro works with everyone.
Yeah, sometimes clients we probably shouldn't work with. No, just kidding. But
That's the next
no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we're about, yeah. Who's streaming this? Yeah. I withdraw my release form. I withdraw it.
Yes,
So,
yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Clients is probably a strong word for the cultural office. We're a nonprofit and we're not membership based. So that means Peak Radar is not membership based. You can have any type of organization that's hosting an event that fits some of the parameters that we have in place, which are not super stringent. You know, Peak Radar covers El Paso, Teller, and Fremont counties. So it's regional in that way. And you can see everything that's going on in one spot. You don't have to follow 50 to 100 different Facebook pages to keep track of, of everything that's going on. So from a partner perspective, Peak Radar is very broad and intentionally so. So that we have the flexibility to promote organizations that have 2 events a year, just as much as we have organizations that have weekly events. And it's just part of the platform to build in and make those decisions. But it's open and available to everyone, again, very intentionally. As far as an audience, I think it's everyone seems a little strong, but yeah, I think people want to engage writ large with their community, and it's you know, trying to find the ways that they plug in. Sort of an old saying that I used to run with was that the people who do things are the people who do things. Meaning, if you are downtown for a Colorado Springs Switchbacks game, you might also look across to the Meanwhile block and say, "Gee, I wonder what happens in that building." And hopefully there's some crossover between those two things. And hopefully the same thing occurs digitally, right, on Peak Radar, where people are moving from the sports and outdoors category over to family fun, down to a gallery to explore on First Friday. But I think, you know, a lot of it too is new people arriving in Colorado Springs, as far as reaching them and making sure that they understand what there is available to them. And some of it is illustrating the venues, right? Because, you know, downtown and the west side are where we have the heaviest concentration of arts venues, but yet dance companies here locally are spread out all across the city. And so people often don't think that there's anything to do because they don't see it right across their street. And that's not true. And part of my job is to illustrate that for them through the 3,500 or so event listings that Peak Radar gets every year.
Yes, yes. So you guys are all about being a hub for events as a form of advertising in marketing to the people. So the people are kind of like your client. Like, if I'm to use the word again forcefully,
Yeah.
I want to use this word bad. So like the general public is who your ideal audience
That's
is.
who we're trying to reach, I think. Yes, but also there's a core arts audience too that wants to have. I have to be able to. Again, I don't like the code switch between the folks that can have the really in-depth conversations, like the Claire Swinfords of the world with her gallery here, that can have the in-depth art conversation, versus who's the person that has no idea the first clue about how to walk into a gallery, what it's like to go to a theater show. Also have to be able to speak their language, and in large part, I find myself speaking that language more so because it's sort of a gateway drug, right? How do we get people into participating? When you talk about conversations about loneliness and mental health and all that, like the arts fit into that in a big way, is participating with your family and friends and going to stuff. So yeah, and I think clients are the people who put on events, right? Like it's kind of that broad of like, if you're hosting something, you can leverage Peak Radar and other tools of the cultural office, right? We have I keep a running media contact list that people can grab right off of our website. And a lot of them are focused on specific arts reporters, right? To make sure that they're the ones that are seeing the events that they want to cover. So that's part of it too.
Thank you for that question. Really, really useful.
Yeah,
resource.
yeah, please.
So what do you feel like is your best outlet for that? Because I personally love your social that you guys put together. But what do you feel like is maybe your best outlet for that reach?
Define best for me.
So in terms of most effective, or really gets people to an event that truly is successful for your clients.
Yeah, I think when there's the marketing funnel, right? A follow on social media is not the same as an e-blast subscription. Right. That kind of thing, and our weekly e-blast that goes out every Wednesday night is not only do you see ticket giveaways and other fun stuff, so subscribe if you haven't. But I think that's the really core audience that we've had good success with, and I think social media allows us to have a bigger reach than an e-blast, and hopefully move them down the funnel. And what we've been able to do, because Peak Radar is so broad, when we put out on social media a list of the 8 to 12 upcoming events, there is something on there for you, right? There is something that you're going to identify with and see. And so I think from a reach perspective, social media, but from an in-depth, clicking to go to the thing. The other thing we do, every event on Peak Radar that is paid, right, that you have to pay to go to, has a buy tickets link. We track that too. So when people that's as close as we can get them to actually, I am choosing to participate, right? And so we track that data for folks and for ourselves as well, to make sure that people are making that final step. Yeah.
I'd also like to kind of piggyback off of talking about ideal customer or client or whatever, and just talk a little bit about data, because data seems like it is one of the top ways in which people can start to the individual can start to think about advertising and how that works for their arts business. So what do you guys think about just data, or how to gather data, any tips or tricks for the average person in business that might not work with you guys, that you're noticing on a larger scale with your clients that you're working with?
My dad has an old saying, figures don't lie, but liars figure. And I think about that a lot.
I love this.
And in the context of this, it's not just accumulating data, it's knowing what to do with it and how it's relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. Everything digitally, website-wise, is tracked. Like, you can get at that information. You can do flow graphs, and you can see heat charts of where people are clicking. And I think any and all that you can know of and gather. I think the real trick is when you put it through the hopper of your brain or your business, what of that matters. For some arts organizations, it's season subscriptions versus individual event attendees, and how do we move those first timers to become season subscribers. For some folks, it's a specific audience that they're trying to reach or trying to not reach, and that could be, I think that takes a lot of different forms, but even as simple as age, right? Are you reaching the right folks in that way? Are you creating a sustainable model for different organizations to last well into the future. I think for me, obviously Google Analytics, right? That's where I live with a lot of the website traffic and those sorts of things. That buy tickets link that I mentioned, that is as close as we can get to people buying it. I also keep track geographically of where our audience is coming from. About 70% of peak radar traffic is out of our market. So out of El Paso and Teller County, as the cultural office defines it. Now, a lot of that comes from Denver and Pueblo, and so there's a subset there. But when we talk about the impact that peak radar has on tourism, which is some of the conversations around the cultural office's funding and that sort of thing, I'm able to point to that and say, this is a tourism-facing part of our work. It's the most tourism-facing part of our work. So again, it's not just, oh, that's interesting. It's that's interesting, and I can apply it in this way.
Love it. I think the only thing to add to this is that, and I think piggybacking on the idea of starting with the goal in mind, starting with the outcome, is very important in terms of knowing what you want to accomplish and then being able to build metrics and KPIs that ladder up to it, right? The only thing with the caveat, because I come from a pretty data-focused agency, the only caveat I would say is data is not, it shouldn't be everything. There are so many human elements that cannot be quantified, that need to be considered when you're building campaigns, when you're engaging with people. And so I feel like as you're thinking about data, it's a great directional tool, but it's I think when it comes to creativity and the human element, kind of using and leveraging those elements to start the conversation or begin kind of or get people into the funnel, I think it needs to be considered. In terms of where or how to gather it, there's so many resources. So once you define like what your goal or your outcome is, to Jonathan's point, there's web metrics. There's if you use Square or any type of app that tracks visits and conversions, you can kind of leverage that to gauge what type of customers are you getting and how does that tie back to the promotions that you're putting out there. There's also a lot of free analytics and research tools. I know for Denver Public Library, they offer access with your library card to certain platforms, and you can get a lot of demographic data. You get to understand. So if you have a clear understanding of like your audience, you can plug in certain certain things into that tool to get a map of like where your audience, what type of behaviors of folks, and what type of demographics, and then that makes it easier to kind of engage and figure out ways to connect with people in those areas, and also can probably help with your programming, the types of events that you create, right? So I would say start again with the goal, and then it's really easy to then build a framework or a measurement framework that enables you to optimize.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm right in line with what these fine gents were saying. I think it's looking at the data and finding that insight that's going to steer your creative direction. An example recently was like we have a car dealership that's trying to buy more cars, and you look at like private, when people sell the car, about 50% they sell it to the dealership, 50% they sell them privately, like on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. So we're trying to get that 50% of people that sell them privately. 75% of people who sell them privately regret selling it privately. So we kind of looked at that and we're like, oh, that's interesting. And the insight we landed on was like, people don't want to sell their car. They want to be done selling their car. They want to like have it out of their driveway, have it out of their mind, so Jonathan and Q were saying, just like finding that insight or looking at the data. It's like a puzzle piece. It's like you've got all the data and there's one missing piece, and like, what is that piece, that insight that we're going to put in there? So.
Well, I have a question for you and you guys' agency. it seems like your data capturing is so thorough. Like how I imagine someone capturing data is like one way is through surveys, right? Like, and then also like and there's other ways, but something else that pops up into my mind is like when we're looking at data, like are we looking at just age, ethnicity? Are we looking at where they're from? Like how do you guys like kind of create filters or specific filters so that you're getting the data that you want? Because like I'm like, where's that 75% and how many people, how many people is it, what's the demographic that's like regretting? Like how do you go about like tailoring that information down so that you can, I guess, formulate better questions or
Yeah.
to find better forms of data? Does that make sense? I asked
For sure.
kind of a
Kimberly
lot.
uses a lot of great tools, and you can buy certain markets through Scarborough.
What is that?
Kimberly? No. It's a research tool.
Not to put you on the line.
She's going to be like, oh, he's going to try and explain it. No. But so there are these research tools, and you can buy these markets, and they'll give you all these insights and stuff like that. And sometimes you don't have to buy them, like KBB, the stats for the car stuff. We got KBB provides a lot of those stats, and sometimes, if you've got an instinct on the creative, you can kind of do it backwards, where it's like, I think that this is where we should be. Are there stats that support that? And sometimes it's just Googling those stats. But our media team has incredible tools for that, and some of them cost money, but sometimes you can just go and do it, or you can hold focus groups or local stuff like that, or just anecdotally, tugging at the heartstrings kind of thing. I was with my kids and I came to this realization that you need to buy a Honda. No, so I think no research is bad, but like it helps you sell your creative if there's some rationale behind it, and clients tend to like numbers and charts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a lot of that, and they're really smart. Yes.
When you kind of merge all of them together, that's when you usually find what that puzzle starts looking like. But sifting and filtering using strategy. So truly thinking about the strategy and then using the data is where you get to the perfect puzzle. And then you find that.
To repeat what Kim was saying is once you define the strategy and can you say it one more time, Kim?
It's combining all the research together and sifting it and filtering it using strategy.
Yeah, so aggregating the data, sifting through it, looking for trends and similarities and things, and you can kind of craft a story, right?
And there's so many resources that you guys have said. I heard the library, I heard your individual organizations provide resources. Yeah, and I just want people to know that this is asking questions is the first place to start, whether you're asking yourself questions about your own business, but then also referencing other people, whether it's your friends, your family, other vendors, if you're at a market as well, could be a great resource.
I think if you can get, the closer you can get to the audience, the person making the decision or engaging and kind of going through that process, I think the better it is. And yeah, to everyone's point, like there's secondary data, like there are a lot of things that exist already and that have people have answered the questions that you're asking. So, and yeah.
Yeah, and just since we're plugging things, Copper has some very cool resources for the art sector in particular.
Yes.
Tap in.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
Culturaloffice.org is the organization website, and Dylan, our program manager of creative economy, keeps a lot of her research and the different organizations that we work with, scaling up to the statewide level. Those sorts of things are available for you to snag there and to have a look. So yeah, Felicia, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes, because I know if anyone takes a business class, they're gonna ask you, okay, like to think about a lot of these core things that we've been talking about, audience data as building your business plan. So that's something to definitely to reference, especially when it comes down to arts data. There seems to there's so many different types of art fields, so finding data for the art specifically can be kind of challenging, because I know, because I just tried to do it last year.
And that's why,
but,
we do all
you know.
that research. And a lot of artists don't consider themselves businesses,
Mm.
and they are and can be, and that's a whole different conversation.
Yes.
But that's also part of this. I think to Q's point, change over time in data is also something that I look at a lot. And then, Kai, to your point about surveys, sometimes we run an annual peak radar survey. Not only am I getting information that I can use in my advertising and programs, I'm also getting information that I can use to talk about our work. So like the first question on that survey is yes or no, first of all. So it's just, but did you go to a new event this year because of peak radar? And we get like 98 to 100%, right? So I can come back and say to people, 100% of people who've used Peak Radar have attended a new event that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Good way to
And
turn
and
that.
that's not even something that I know that already, and but it's not something that I use in our advertising or programming necessarily. It's something that I use when I'm talking about the program to people who don't know. So there's other ways to use data beyond just informing your campaigns too.
I think that that's a great way. How you framed that was like how you took how the data and then made a conversation into that. That's another way in which you can totally use data that
You're also going to get
storytell.
You're also going to get more specific negative feedback every time. So when you have someone who wants to give you positive feedback, have them be specific.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Have them write it out, have them write it down, have them answer, because especially with organizations who serve thousands of people, you're always going to get more specific negative feedback.
That's a really good
surveys.
advice.
Unfortunately.
To get down to it, what does advertising mean to you? How do you define it?
I'm glad you didn't start with that one.
Because just to guide it a little bit, for the average person, I feel like when we think about advertising, we're on the road. Oh, there's a bench. It says advertise here. Okay. Oh, there's something in the sky. Okay, that there's a little billboard or whatever. It could be like a one that's digital, one that's physical print. That's what I notice at commercials, general, and then that I feel like nowadays that social media is a form of advertising, and that's but and we're about to get there too with social media, but I want you to define it for maybe yours.
Yeah, I think that telling your story in a relevant way, and that could be the bus bench, right? That I think we think of certain ways of advertising as not as cool, but sometimes if you run a bus company, it's more important for you to be on that bus bench than it is for you to be posting daily on your Facebook page. So I think your story in a relevant way. There's so many more ways that we could go into. To try to put it in one sentence.
That's great. I like that.
Yeah, I would say in one sentence, I think it's influence. When I started my professional career, I started in sales, and I noticed that a lot of people were already sold. Like they knew for the most part 70%, 80% of what they wanted to get when it came to me in retail sales. And I was like, how do I get closer to the space or in the funnel where I'm having a little bit more influence in that decision? And yeah, that totally is, I think, is in one word, advertising influence. And in terms of story, I think once you get to kind of defining that story, it makes it really, really easy to attract, because I feel like bad advertising is chasing, good advertising is attracting. So, and it's not only promoting kind of messages and creative and ideas, but it's also figuring out useful partnerships and ways to that are just natural, and it just naturally attracts your audience. And so 2 words: influence and attraction.
Okay. Well.
I think it's probably like the dictionary definition is like messaging to sell a product or a good or something like that. And I think there's kind of emotional purchases and rational purchases. And a rational purchase would be like you're taught, you see a vendor selling water and he has a sign that says water $1. That's like the simplest form of advertising. But in today's landscape, there's so many different forms, and it's evolved and it's crazy. But I think advertising is like, it's a part of human nature, like anything else. Like um, the ancient city of Pompeii in Rome, that was when Mount Vesuvius exploded and it got covered in ash and stuff like that. It kind of preserved that city, and you can see like the advertising that they have on the walls and stuff like, so it's like, even 2000 years ago, humans were advertising, and we were doing these things to sell these products and these goods. And there were even customer reviews in Pompeii. There's a wall where it said it was a hotel, and there were no chamber pots, so we peed in the bed. That's the first Yelp review in history. So, it's like, it's just a fundamental human thing, that a message to try and sell stuff. And my wife will be she's like, "You talked about Rome in this thing?"
Okay. How honest should a brand get?
I can take the two. I can switch it up a little bit. Sure. So I think in branding in general, it's about trust, right? And so I think the more as honest as possible, the more honest the better, because you don't get a lot of opportunities to win back trust, right? It's easier to build upon the trust and by being true and engaging honestly. But the moment that you're not, then it just becomes so much harder to kind of rebuild. And so that would be kind of my addition to that.
Yeah, I think consumers are smart, and they can tell when a brand's not being authentic. And I think authenticity sells, more than anything, especially consumers now. And like, I think that's what like influencer marketing is trying to drive at, is that honesty. Even though some of those don't feel very honest, they feel very, but like, I think that's the idea behind it. Is like, I'm a real person, and I'm using this product in a real way, Um, but I think, as honest as you can. But at the end of the day, you are still trying to sell a product, and you're protecting your brand a little bit as well from, uh, not every company has ethical practices or something like that. Volkswagen lied about their, EV emissions several years back and stuff like, and then they covered it up again. And then they said, we're going to go all electric by 2030 or something like that, so there is a way back, but it's like, dishonesty can really hurt your brand. So authenticity, especially now, is king, I think.
I can add one more thing to that too. I think so. There's authenticity in communicating your message and the benefits that people are going to get out of your product. But I think there's also like real insight that comes from or real connection that comes from someone recognizing and how do you call it? Seeing truth in what you've shared in their own lives. And I think that brings, like, I've seen so many cool campaigns, and I've done a lot of campaigns that start from that core insight of like, what are some of the true struggles that this audience is experiencing, and bringing out that truth within the concept, within the creative, within the messaging. Like, it just automatically connects with people. And I think not only is that good for the results in the campaign, but it's also good for kind of building that trust.
As much as possible feels right, gentlemen. I think especially as a small business, because your personal self is tied in with your business, and people will make decisions based on that. And I think the other thing when we talk about honesty in advertising is honesty in the experience that they're going to have. I think about that a lot with arts groups, as far as like, how long is this event going to be? What it's going to be like arriving at this thing. What does it mean that it's Mozart's 8th Symphony? I'd never been to a classical concert before, right? So explaining what it is that they're going to experience as part of your process or as part of your work is something that can help with that.
Let's talk about clients. You guys deal with clients inherently, like people that come to you. Client is defined as a person that comes to you seeking to, buy your services or utilize your services. So, how do you guide and educate someone through, having a successful advertising campaign? Yeah, what are some like basics, like 1, 2, 3, of having a successful advertising campaign, and then also, what does education look like to you when you're talking to the customer?
Yeah, I think some clients are really expertise or believe they're experts in marketing, and some are like brand new and wide eyed and they don't know, you know. So I think it's just kind of, I never try to condescend and be like, look, Mr. Experts here, and, you know. So I never want to do that. I try and view them as like we're teammates, and we have this goal that we're trying to achieve together. And if you're transparent with me, I'll be transparent with you. And I've at AdPro we're really fortunate to have a lot of amazing clients who are really smart, who ask challenging questions. So that's always been my philosophy, is like, hey, we're teammates, and the better teammate you are, the better teammate I can be. And if we work together, we can achieve your goals. And at the end of the year, I'm going to ask for a higher commission. So
So for me, I feel it's both ways, right? And that's one of the things that drew me to advertising or just marketing in general is that like I get an opportunity to learn about so many different things, so many different industries, so many different types of people, and so I feel like coming into it with curiosity and openness. So curiosity to learn, but openness also openness to learn, but openness to be able to kind of share what you know, what you don't know, the limits of that. And I feel like with that honesty and kind of creating that safe and kind of space, it makes it so much easier to build. And so I think that would probably be where I would start.
With you as a person that they're coming to, is you're starting with your own honesty. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that, but also curiosity for their
Curiosity,
business,
yeah.
right? Like I'm always with clients, I'm always interested in like, why they got started and like how, why are they passionate about what they're doing, and how can we, because in marketing and sales and advertising, it's a transference of energy. That's how I view it. It's a transference of like how excited you get when you know, if you have like a motorcycle brand and you like love like being on the road, it's that excitement and that energy of like, transferring to other people who could potentially love that experience, right? And so that's how I approach it. I start with kind of that curiosity for their business and understanding like what gets them going, what gets their audience going, and then I also kind of try to educate as well. So like just simple things like the 4 P's of marketing: price, product, place, promotion. I like to add people and process to that, which are I feel like the foundations of marketing. But yeah, I like to share what I know and establish like a framework that is going to get us to the goal.
I think 2 things: space to have honest conversations, as far as what they know and what you know, and where your lines are, right? If you have to find where those lines exist, I think that's important to know about each other when it's a partnership like that. From a Peak Radar perspective, though, I'm good at knowing what's going on. I'm not 3,500 event listings every year good. So we rely on folks to submit their marketing material to Peak Radar. And part of my conversation with them is that's what I have to work with. So what photo you're putting, how you're describing your event is what I'm going to leverage in my work when I'm on KRDO radio or doing an e-blast or whatever. It's coming from what you know and what you're able to tell about your event because they're the experts. They've run it for how many years. They've been in that space. So it's a little bit different setup where I'm counting on them to do it well. And it's really obvious when they're not good at telling their story or having the right photos or those sorts of things.
So how do you guide them through that if they don't? if
Yeah.
you notice that they're missing some of those pieces?
Well, I think as they submit events and as we, hear things about what's going on, the form kind of is the first place where we set them up for success with knowing what they need to have to fill out the form.
Mm-hmm.
And then the form requires them to have the right photo and the buy tickets link and all the rest. So you set it up structurally to begin with. And if you find a structure that works, like, Colin, we've gone through multiple brand digs for Peak Radar for the cultural office, and that is a structure that we know what we can contribute and what's going to come back the other way, how long we're going to be at this, what the program is going to look like. And so even as simple as the form on Peak Radar, telling you, no, this isn't the right size of a photo. And then it kicks it back to them and they have to find the right photo size, even as simple as that. But also conversations, right? There's a dedicated phone line. When you call the Peak Radar support line, it is me answering it, right? On the end of that phone to have a conversation. I love when organizations come to us and say one of two things, right? Hey, this is sold out. We don't need any help. Perfect. Love it. Thank you. Or, we're not quite where we need to be. How can we additionally push this? What are the other things about your event, especially recurring events, right? Like, what is different this year? Or who is somebody new? Or where's an interesting story that we can leverage in our promotions and our conversations with media? So I think, when people reach out in that way, that usually ends up with something that's they can take home.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, social media is a hot topic as far as like being an avenue in which we can, share news about what's happening in community. How do you guys feel about this current landscape of social media as a marketing option? And how's that affected or maybe not affected your company, or maybe in positive or negative way? What does that look like for you, social media?
I can take this first. So it's an important tool. Well, the landscape right now, I see it overused and overdepended on, particularly when it comes to driving desire and getting people to act on things, right? Purchase a ticket or engage in a certain way. I think it's a useful tool if it's a part of a holistic kind of marketing mix and it's customized for your funnel. So, and what that means is great for getting awareness, great for getting people interested, getting people engaged. But then there are other ways to kind of take them down the funnel, right? Engaging events, great conversations, email list, right? Really, I'm sure anyone you talk to, they'll tell you their top performing thing. Well, two top performing kind of sources or avenues are their email lists for conversions, and then their search or SEO, right? And I feel like having the right mix of things working all well together is what you need. From a social perspective, and actually that's one of the things I help clients with, is I help them define their story, define their audience, and then create social themes that then I partner with an organization that helps me produce the actual posts and stuff. But like, what I see is people just producing posts without doing that critical kind of first step of defining your story, understanding your audience, and then making sure that you're from a promotional plan perspective, you're saying things in different ways. You're making sure that the message lands for the different audiences that you're kind of working with. You're putting in different mediums and forms. I think Jeff, you talked about art being the soul of advertising, right? Like, there's so many different ways that you can communicate the same message, and a picture says 1,000 words. Videos, how many words does videos have, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think having the right mix is super important, and making sure that whatever you share, it's relevant and it's not like you're using the right channel for the right purpose. And that's probably, I think, one of the key things I would say. And what was the second part of your question?
I mean, just talking about social media and what do you guys think about it nowadays?
Okay.
Sorry, I got ADHD, guys. So
I
might ask 3 questions at once and
same,
not know one.
same here. So I'll pass it on.
Jonathan, you want to rock, paper, scissors for it? Or?
I'm listening. I'm like,
Yeah,
Social media. What do you think about it?
you have to be there, right? You have to be on social. I don't love that, but you have to. That's one. Two, it's not a cure-all. I think that's how a lot of folks view it, is that if only my social media was doing better, my business would succeed, which is, as we know, not necessarily true. And then third, I think that there are still platforms that you use strategically differently. I see a lot of folks that post the same thing as you talk about across all the platforms. And what you put on Instagram should not exactly match what you put on LinkedIn or what you put on Twitter. Now, Facebook and Instagram are the same company. Meta, like that, is its own thing. But I still think there's room to match your message to the platform. And I see that sort of sliding away at times because it's tough to do that. That takes a lot of work. But you have different audiences on the different platforms, and they're going to resonate differently with different parts of your message.
Yeah, social media just moves so fast. I remember in 2014, it was like I was an intern at FCB, and they're like, here's the credentials to the KFC socials. Don't use the F word. And that was like all they said. And then like 2 years later, we were meeting with like they had hired a social person, and we were meeting with like this person every day, and like they would like spend $1 million to sponsor one post. And it's like, holy cow. And then, now it's just evolved and crazy, and there's different platforms, and TikTok is that was a dad moment. It was a total TikTok's going away, and now it's coming back. Yeah, social is a scary realm, and it's I still think the ideas are king, and that soul. But I saw a thing this like last week that was like Mark Zuckerberg saying that AI is gonna do all the social advertising for you, and we're gonna replace agencies. And Sam Altman of OpenAI said something very similar. So it's like, oh gosh, what is the next thing for social? How can we get ahead of that and be experts in whatever AI that Meta puts out or something like that, or because is that what clients are going to want? So it just moves so fast, and I try my best to keep up with it, but I called it tic tac, so I'm the least qualified person to talk about. So.
No, just I guess sort of to piggyback on some of the things that you all have mentioned, one thing that I found very frustrating in almost my day-to-day life, it's explaining how some metrics are vanity metrics, and being able to be like, it doesn't really matter how many people engage with this if there is no call to action, if it's not connected to any strategy and all of those fun things. And I just wanted to drive that point home, because I don't have the patience anymore to explain it to folks, so much so that I don't do social media. But yes, thank you for that. And here.
Love it. And I want to add one thing to it, actually 2 things, is to the AI comment. I feel in anything, that's one thing that frustrates me sometimes. I'm on social, I'm on these feeds, like I'm just inundated with so much information, a lot of robotic kind of voices, and it's a lot to kind of sift through. And I'm sure if I'm having this frustration, a lot of people are having kind of similar frustrations. And so I feel like that's why it's so important to like get your message down, get your audience down, and make sure that whatever you're doing, like there's relevance. Because that's one thing that we'll have over AI for a while, at least as humans, is that like we're able to kind of connect at a deeper level, even through digital means. And so I feel like nailing that is going to help. Another thing is, the second thing I want to add for the social conversation is that every platform, to Jonathan's point, has a purpose, but even within every platform, there's features that have a purpose. and being able to leverage those features in the right way to maximize the impact for your business, but also for your audience, and making sure that they're getting information in the ways that matter to them. They're able to kind of create community in the ways that matter, like super important, right? So those are the 2 points I wanted to kind of add on there.
Yeah, I want to touch on the AI conversation and maybe talk about the ethics of advertising as well. I think that in this day and age, the consumers are being pushed to use more AI products and to go with routes that are not involving people like us in that process. How do we reclaim that type of space and prevent people from going into these brain rot holes that we're all really sick of? Like, how can we encourage that through the type of work that we do? Or maybe do you like AI and like to use 16 ounces of water with every entry post? And you're talking about you at the I was crazy. That's a fact. That's a fact.
All right. There are a couple for me. There are a couple ways to kind of tackle that question, right? The first is kind of going back to that marketing piece I talked about, right? The addition of the 2 additional P's of process and people. I think people P outweighs the process. I think process helps with like the monotonous kind of repetitive things and the things where that can give us a little, extra superpowers, right? In terms of being able to increase our output. But the people element, like there's no copying kind of like that human kind of connection element. And I think the more that we do, and the way that we battle against that is being on the consumer side, like seeking out that human element and making sure that we continue to make sure that that's important in what we consume and how we engage. And I think that's one way that we can battle it. On the other side of things, like I love, like there's so many, like once I see myself doing things more than 3 or 4 times, like I figure out ways to create custom GPTs to do that thing, right?
So you're pro AI.
Again,
for like a back of the house.
For a back of a house
type of
process,
system.
taking.
No, I just want to know, like, what is the section?
Yeah, and that's what.
So you hate the environment.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I see the power in being able to leverage it, and I think it's important to again tackle things with curiosity and openness, because that's how all through my life I've been so curious about everything, and it's never not served me to be curious and to explore and to experiment. Like I feel like that's in my nature. So, in terms of like how technology is developing, I don't see a future without it. And so I think it's important that we educate ourselves on the capabilities, but I also see the detriments of relying fully on it. So I'll stop there, right?
Very good.
I think first of all, I am in no way an expert as far as like where AI is headed, or like, I mean, what 2 weeks is going to look like, let alone 6 months, 3 years. I think obviously from an artist perspective and an arts organization perspective, right, as much as we can keep it real, right, and illustrate that value, I think for the time being, we can still kind of tell, right, especially graphically, when something is AI. And so there's still that is still at hand where we can identify the difference. And I think that's important and is going to get tougher and tougher to do as time goes on. But I think, make sure that that's part of how we're interacting with it right now. We had the cultural office hosted a conversation with the UCCS professor a month or 2 ago on this very topic, AI and where it's headed. And he was of the opinion that at some point it's a hope and and a desire that the reverse will happen, that people will then find more value in what they know is created, not by AI. Whether that will happen remains to be seen, because there are, business applications and time-saving applications that people might be willing to trade and make that exchange for. But I think it's going to be even tougher than it is now, an ongoing process of illustrating why your work matters, why how you create it matters, and why people should pay for said work created in that way. And so continually updating your story to be able to tell that to people as to why that matters.
Yeah.
We had this thing at this Colorado State Fair is one of our clients, and every year they have an art competition. And a few years back, I think it was 2 years ago, there was like a big story where the winner of this art competition was an AI generated image, and it became this big thing, and like it sparked this whole debate about like, well, is AI art, and yada yada yada, and I don't think so, because it's pulling from all of these existing artists and stuff like that. But for advertising, I do think that it is going to be something that becomes part of the norm, and whether I like it or not, it's something I feel like I need to like kind of know how to use a little bit. But I think it's only as good as the person that's using it and the ideas that you give it. And you're curating these things and feeling really guilty about all the trees you're killing. But it is kind of like Bill Gates was like, yeah, with AI, we're going to have a 2-day work week. And it's like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that, And if you ask like AI, like how
Who's
long?
that we too?
I know.
We are going to.
Yeah,
is
dude,
it the
you already.
millionaires or
Yeah.
is it the small business person?
Yeah.
Am I gonna have it or is he gonna have it?
I don't know. That's just what he. It was behind a paywall. I didn't read the article.
For sure.
But there is that. I know. There is that fear that like, is AI gonna replace us? As creators and artists, or something I saw online earlier this week was something called Jevons paradox, and it was this guy in like 1857 or something. He wrote a book about coal consumption, and there were these trains that burned coal much more efficiently. So people thought, oh, we're burning coal more efficiently, we're going to use less coal. But since it's so easy to use, we ended up using more coal throughout it. So I think the argument that somebody was making was that, like, yes, AI makes advertising much more efficient, but that just means you can make so much more of it if you know how to do it. So I kind of liked that, and I haven't, I've watched a few videos and read a few headlines that are behind paywalls about Jevons paradox, and I forget his first name. I'm going to call him Jebediah because every board name is Jebediah. But yeah, I think that's something that we'll probably hear about more, is that Jevons paradox, and just kind of like, it's getting more efficient, but that means we're going to use a lot more of it. So.
That's an extremely good point to end on, because I touched on or I said something about ethics earlier. Like, what is the importance of honesty when you're conveying stuff about your brand? And if we understand that AI is not, it's a wild, wild west right now, and it's mining from artists, creatives, and in the way that it is, since this is an arts conversation, like, I would just like to put out there that I think that people should continue to utilize local talent, and leverage. And if that's a value for you, how do you let your customer know that instead of going with certain tools that are easier in the end for us to consume, I'm going to go the long route and make sure that someone in my city can be supported and their career path can be supported. Because it's cool when CapCut can have like a interesting way that you can put your video together, but like, also, if someone in your community is doing videography, like, they're also tapped into what locally is happening and how the people in your city can respond to that, and we're also putting dollars in the hands of real people that doesn't have any trees burning down or disrupting towns and their water system, and that whole process, because that is what's happening. Like, what are we trading off when we decide that we're using something that is saving us time? But there's always an exchange in this life, and I think kind of ending this conversation on, like, what is that exchange? What is that exchange you want to have with your business and the customer? How can your community show up and support you is always important. And this is just another conversation in which we can talk about how we can, any of you guys in here, can continue to support real people and the economy and the system that we're in right now, because we got a lot of interesting times coming up. Some more things are happening, but coming together and having this conversation is very enlightening for me, myself, so I can imagine anyone on the videos how this might affect you guys. I just want to say, like, reaching the end, I do want to have you guys ask any questions. Has anything come into your mind from this conversation? Yeah, you do that.
I got a question specifically for Jonathan.
Yeah.
As a client, you mentioned working with Neon Pig and Colin. It's not bad, but so if you're a creative person, a designer, and you have any desire to work independently, you're eventually going to hit a point where you're struggling to find new business and new clients to work with.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to try to solve that for us, but I'd love to hear your perspective as a client working with someone like Neon Pig. How is that valuable to you? And I think to frame that a little better, I think if independent designers could better understand what clients need and how specifically they benefit from working with people like us, we would be able to connect with them better and find more of them. So I'm curious, from your perspective as a client, how is it helpful for you, and what do you value about that relationship, and how do you benefit from working with people outside of your organization?
Yeah, great question. I think referrals still matter first and foremost, right? I like working with Neon Big because Colin's a Switchbacks fan and we go to Switchbacks games. Just kidding. The cultural office is 5 people. And so what Colin allows, and like 1 1/3 that work on Peak Radar, right? So Neon Pig, that allows us to expand in ways that we would never be able to, and to reach audiences and to have bigger conversations that we wouldn't be able to, or have the time to, or the way to go in depth with. Like the last one we worked on, the Peak Radar campaign, is something that we use as a marketing tool regionally to talk about the art scene in Colorado Springs. So it's not just getting people to use Peak Radar, it's how are we speaking about the entirety of our work. And those are conversations and level up and level out moments that we're able to have with our creative partners in that way. I think, Neon Pig and everybody, I think, does a good job of showing their work too, right? That's especially in places where we want visual outcomes. You want to be able to show your work visually. And Neon Pig does a good job of illustrating that. So no, it's also a long-standing partnership, right? And that allows us to have deeper conversations, or to start from a deeper place, as opposed to just coming in, what the heck is Peak Radar? I don't have to tell Colin that. Colin knows where the cultural office has come from, what Peak Radar has grown to be. So the level set is different when you've been able to work with someone for multiple years too. Thank you for not putting it on me to solve new clients. That's a different conversation, but I think the more of those referrals and illustrating what it is you do and how matters.
Well, I was just gonna add, like you said, even at the end of the email, like, yeah, the Switchbacks game, right? Like the little personal touches do.
Also, incidentally, the way we got the cultural office as a client is because my 2 business partners and I served on the AAF board at a time that you did the public service project, which is where you leverage a nonprofit's advertising dollars.
Yeah.
And being on the board, the cultural office was chosen as the nonprofit to leverage. And so I think the lesson there is just get involved, then you never know what amazing partnerships
Mm.
and friendships and work is going to come of it.
Yes.
It's
Get involved.
not a silver bullet by any means, but you know, get involved, as all of us know, is super important. So
Yeah.
9 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
Sorry. No, I thought that we got more of the public service
It wasn't that one.
Okay.
It was YDA.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean-
I gotta stress that more.
But then we got more work with YDA, like people on the board started working with us.
Yeah, that's a solid comment. I think what you mentioned earlier, right? Like your audience is people who do things in Colorado, and I think if the more you're doing things, the more you're meeting people, engaging, like the more you're gonna meet your audience, and it's easier to build from that relationship in person than an ad or anything that's impersonal, right? And so, sure, we can do that with better ads. We can be a little bit more personal and more human, but nothing beats like grabbing some food or going to an event or a shared experience, right? So can't stress that enough. Anything else?
We could have committee opportunity.
Oh, exactly. We actually, a little if you guys are interested,
I was just gonna say,
we have a lot of AEF committee opportunities.
If you want to get involved.
This is really just 2 comments. First of all, great job, really insightful stuff, and absolutely really loved it a lot. And then secondly, I think you should plug Level Up as well. It's a cultural office event that AAF and AIGA are going to be co-sponsoring. Yeah, happy to. So yeah,
We'll get to the plug second in a second.
I guess my quick question was just, have you noticed a trend of things moving more offline as we see the rise of AI and like just slop everywhere? Okay, yeah, because I've also noticed the same. So I think it's been useful lately to focus my advertising more like kind of guerrilla real world style, like leaving little like zines around town, like something physical and experiential, like you were saying earlier, that people can find.
Oh yeah. I think COVID and AI. But yeah, I think on that point, people are just craving connection, right? And in-person connection, because of course there's all these discords and online conversations and stuff, but like nothing beats just sitting down, like shooting the shit, excuse the French, but like nothing beats that kind of in-person engagement. And that's one of the things that compelled me to get involved is like, I was spending 10, 12, 13 hours on a computer screen all day and, missing that. And so I think keeping that in mind for your audience is that if you can think about what the typical day looks like for your key audience, and you can kind of think of their typical kind of pains, you think about the things that they're struggling with, like, and empathize, like you're gonna know, it's gonna guide you in terms of like what's gonna be impactful for them and impactful for kind of building that relationship.
I just have a final comment to kind of piggyback. As someone who's like just joining the industry, it's been kind of stressful to look at like where we're at and how AI is kind of shifting that and the stress of like, oh, is this going to be like a secure industry? And I just look to events like this and recognizing that other people in the industry are the people who care deeply about the personal touch, and those are the people that we're working with. And so those people choosing to kind of curve that AI. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
That is how we fight against it.
Thank you.
Don't let it be said.
We need to speak up, guys. Rise up, don't sit down. Okay.
This.
Give it back.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to ask real quick if Jeremy remembers the Oreo jingle, and if so, could you?
I don't remember the
Go
Oreo
Jeremy.
one, but
Go
I did
Jeremy.
my
Go
guitar with
Jeremy.
some jingles if people want to hear it.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh, that would be a great way to end this out.
Yes.
Oh, you want to plug Level Up while he sets up?
I didn't even play it. I didn't even prepare for this.
He always brings it. He even brought it to a few new business pitches.
I love it.
Love it.
We've got.
Yeah, I tried to be a songwriter. I tried art as my main thing, and I did okay, you know. But I made a lot more money doing jingles and was able to feed myself probably too much with my guitar, so or writing jingles. So, and since the theme of today was the intersection of art and advertising, I thought playing a few jingles might be a fun way to end it. So
Absolutely.
I was running through ones to play last night. I figured I'd play one for an internet company that's called Cox, and this one actually was one that ran, and then I'd do a spec one, and then maybe like a real song, just because I to keep some shred of artistic integrity.
Awesome.
So this is. I don't think it's it's not too big of a room. I don't know if you need the mic or not.
Yeah, you don't think so?
Oh,
Okay.
this is just for the audience. This is for the
Gotcha. So this is Cox Internet, and it's about a promotion they had where you can get a free year of NFL Sunday ticket. Football in the shower, football on the roof, football in the shopping line. I can watch football anytime. Football at the wedding and couples therapy. Wherever I go, I don't care. I can watch football anywhere. Football on your smartphone, everywhere you go. If you are a football fan, you have to get this bundle plan. Switch to Cox Home Internet and get football on your phone. Football. So yeah, so that one still, 10 years later, I randomly get like a residual check for that for like $80, and they still use that.
I love it. I think we need more jingles. I think they're coming back.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I'd like to see AI do that. No.
Okay, well, don't challenge it now. Don't challenge it. Somebody might challenge it.
Sono is the song one, and it's a little scary actually. This is one of my favorite jingles that didn't get produced. So I'm not going to say the name of the brand. They don't get that recognition because they didn't do it. But I still like the jingle, and it's for a food delivery service. And the visuals were a giant brownie serenading a woman who had just been broken up with. So, girl, you were too good for him anyway. You're better off now, and you know that it's okay. But sometimes you need a breakup brownie, girl. Breakup brownie, girl. And I would never do you wrong like that guy that did you wrong. Because you're special. Brand name. And then lastly, to kind of bookend the theme of today, I think, art, at least to me, is an expression of the soul, and sometimes like these things kind of come out of you and you can't even help it. And when my wife and I were about to have our first kid, I was really nervous, and I wrote this song about having a baby, and it's called Dad's Shoes, which I'm wearing today. So. Oh, it's weird how she lives in your belly. You get to explain how she got there. I hope she has your smile and your bright eyes. Pretty much everything except my lush hair. I got the Doggers, you've got the snacks in your purse, and I've got the dad shoes, the kind you find in a male nurse. And you've got the body with the right anatomy, because inside of you there's a little you and me. Oh, I promise not to be overprotective. Okay, that's a promise that I can't keep, but I'm okay with changing midnight diapers. Anything I can do to help you sleep, 'cause you've got 'cause I've got the dad jokes. You've got the car with all-wheel drive. Yeah, I'm scared shitless about keeping her alive, but we can do it, and we'll build a family, because inside of you there's a little you and me. She will be short, so very short, but I don't mind. I'm sorry that her DNA is mine. 'Cause you've got the patience, you've got the biggest heart on earth. I wish I could help more when it comes to actually giving birth, but you know I'll be there, as supportive as can be, because inside of you there's a little you and me, because inside of you there's a little Waverly. That's my daughter's name.
I love that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for indulging me.
That's so good.
Thank you for indulging me and for having all of us today. And,
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Honestly, thank you guys for joining this art talk, a part of our Art Boss collection that the Pikes Peak Arts Council throws. We seek to educate the average artist on the business of arts, and this year we have decided that we wanted to do that through our community collaboration. So thank you guys for being a part of our community. Yes, and doing this amazing work. Let's plug it up. What y'all got going on?
Okay, I can go first. So if you want to engage with AAF, aafcolorado.org, we have a bunch of events on calendar coming up. This Friday is our Work Friends event. We have one in Colorado Springs, one in Denver. Colorado Springs is going to be at New Altitude Co-working Space, and it's free to join, and it's from 12 to 4:30 p.m. And it's just a space to kind of get out of the house, get out of the studio, get out of the solo working mode, and come meet people who are kind of in the same industry and doing cool things. And so it happens every first Friday, so this Friday. And then again, we have coffee talks at the end of every month as well.
I don't think I have anything to plug. Got some kids' birthday parties I got to take my kids to.
Great.
Nice. Culturaloffice.org for more about the work that the Cultural Office does. PeakRadar.com, as we've talked about. A couple of parts of Peak Radar I wanted to mention. One is the opportunities board that we run off of Peak Radar. You can post jobs, board opportunities, calls for art. All of that can be posted there and lives there. There's also a section called Peak Arts Ed, which is the classes and workshops that are offered in the community here locally, not only for kiddos, but for adults as well. So a couple of things on Peak Radar. And then Colin mentioned the Level Up Creative Sector Summit. That'll be June 25th at the Ent Center for the Arts, 1 to 6 p.m. It's a full half day of these types of conversations, intersections of art and business, and speakers like Tatiana Bailey, it's a local economist. And so there will be all kinds of fun things, networking, free headshots, as well, a couple of breakout sessions, one of which I will lead and one of which my colleague Dylan Craddock will lead as part of that too. So culturaloffice.org has the details on that. Thanks for coming, guys.
Great. And you'll find feedback here as well. Thank you. All right, break. Yes, please. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We get some B-roll.
Hey, yo.